Hey guys, this is IronPopcan, aka Trevor of the Rancid Hyenas Gaming Group, and I'm 25 hours without sleep, loaded with caffeine, as well as crazy ignorant ideas, so I figure, that's the perfect mixture for any entertaining YouTube video, right? So today, we're going to talk about something because it hasn't been requested, and, it's something that's kind of been on my mind for a while. And so basically today we're going to be comparing Castlevania to Demon Souls, Dark Souls, basically the whole D Souls series. And we'll be kind of covering all the basics of kind of what ties them together and also kind of, what separates them if we can. Obviously, each one is going to be their own entity. I mean, they're not exactly copy paste from each other. They don't follow the same storylines at all, but I mean, they do have a lot of similarities. At least, in my opinion, and that's just what I'm here to express. You're free to disagree with me, agree, whatever. I mean, there's a comment section. You guys can debate it. I mean, express whatever you want. I don't care. I mean, I would love to see, some feedback, no matter positive, negative. I mean, it is what it is. So, with that said, let's get rolling and let's get the show on the road. Okay, so we're just gonna jump into the main objective here. I mean, fucking raw dog, no lube, haven't shaved in 2 months, here we go. So, what, you know, these games have in common is, for one, the challenge. They're both, were extremely difficult. If we're going old school Castlevania, comparing it to the D Soul series, hard as shit. But not in the sense that they just throw enemies at you so much as each enemy kind of has their own pattern. And it makes you stop and think and kind of, learn some tactics rather than just, rushing into your fucking demise or just relying on simple button mashing like an idiot. Because, I mean, that's fun for some games, don't get me wrong. I mean, Mortal Kombat galore, right? But, these games provide actual substance to their madness. They give you a sense of you're actually becoming a hardcore badass motherfucker with actual skill and talent. And that's something that you just don't see in very many games anymore, which is why I'm grateful for, Demon Souls, Dark Souls, the whole series. Granted, I mean, they kind of started going in a more sporadic direction with Bloodborne, but we're not going to get into that because Bloodborne is, a completely different timeline from the actual series itself, so irrelevant. And then, Castlevania kind of veered on the same path. I mean, around the time that Symphony of the Night came out, I mean, you had the N64 games, which were... They could have been better. I mean, they had a vision, they had like an actual potential, but they just weren't, they didn't execute on it properly. And then, you kind of got the PS2 versions, which were, they were a step up. They were. They weren't still perfect, they weren't exactly polished, but they were still a slight step forward in, the right direction for bringing the series into full 3D. And, then we get Castlevania Lords of Shadow, which was, it was phenomenal. I mean, a little confusing, I mean, especially considering it was technically, it was a different project from the beginning. And, maybe it should have stayed that way, maybe not, it's hard to tell, but it kind of gave a lot of the hardcore Castlevania fans, like, this kind of hope, like, maybe this is, like, they're starting a new origin before all the other timelines, and, maybe we're gonna get revamps of all the other games in kind of, the same manner. And, besides, kind of crappy camera angles at times, and, shitty, the shitty fucking button events, whatever you call it. I'm sorry. I'm not that articulate right now. I mean, my brain is, like, melting. So, bear with me here. But the QuickTime events, I mean, they worked. They did, I mean, but at the same time, they weren't really necessary. And the game itself, without them, would have been fine. But, I understand they wanted to throw in a little extra challenge because, in those games they really dumbed down the enemies. I mean, they literally just threw them at you and all the enemies basically attacked you in the same manner instead of, having that flow, that sporadic, crazy, you know, but you could still analyze it. I mean, they in the Lords of Shadow games, they just literally came at you and just attacked you. It wasn't, you know, it didn't give the same feel that the old Castlevania games did. Much like, you think about what they did again with the D-Souls series and you think, why don't they draw inspiration from that? But all in all, Lords of Shadow, it was good for what it was. And again, it marked in like a bookmark for, some hope for the future of the series. And then we get Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2, which, kind of took all that away. Because the timeline went extremely forward into the future, past all the other events, and literally marked the close of the series like it's not going to go any further. I mean, unless, they find a way to keep it going. Now, maybe that could be a possibility. But, it's just, to me it kind of felt like, say your pet gets sick. You take it to the vet, it starts getting better, but for some whatever reason, your dad decides to take it out back and shoot it anyway. It kind of buried that hope. It kind of buried, because, again, the hardcore Castlevania fans, they want to see, everyone of any hardcore series, whether it's Final Fantasy VII or, what have you, we all want to see our revamps. We all want to see the remakes. We want to see how it would look now, how it would play out, make it advance. Like, maybe, God forbid, this is a crazy idea, but bear with me on this. Maybe Konami could do with Castlevania as Mortal Kombat's been doing lately and bring it to kind of like 2.5D. You got these awesome killer graphics, but it goes back to the original format, which we all know and love. Or, again, take it in kind of the direction that, the D-Souls have been going. Because, you could almost, if you were to take the D-Souls games and just put Dracula behind the whole plot and make the main character a Belmont or whatever, honestly, you could put Castlevania right on it and it would feel so much more worthy than all the other 3D ports that we've seen since the N64 port. And, I don't mean to keep bashing on the N64 port because, again, it tried. It was poorly executed, but it fucking tried. And, it's probably not the worst that has ever been in the series. Castlevania has definitely had many flops. I'll say probably the very first one was Castlevania 2 on the NES. And at least the original English port. Granted, you can go online and find, better ports, that have actually been translated better, because that's what messed everyone up in that game. Was poor translations for needed hints that would basically throw you in random loops and made no sense at all. So, to know that they've kind of improved on it, if you ever want to play Castlevania 2, that's going to be the way to go. Do not play the original English port. I promise your brain cells will commit suicide within an hour. All of them. Every single one. So, okay, that pretty much covers my end for Castlevania. I would love to see if they could greatly improve on it, see if maybe it could restore its old glory, but, since Symphony of the Night, we haven't really had a proper Castlevania title. And I know a lot of people have mentioned that, they've already covered it, so again, we're not going to explore that any further. So let's move on to Demon Souls, or the D-Souls series in general. When this game came out, it was revolutionary without really trying, it seemed like. If anything, they went with, okay, let's build this badass graphics engine, but we'll make the game with like old school logic. We'll have the enemies be kind of sporadic, but they're gonna have their patterns. And on top of that, check this out. When you die, you gotta start the level over, and you gotta go redo your souls to get your humanity back, get all your points back. But if you die again trying to get it, boom, that shit's gone. And it increases the difficulty. It makes you, it pisses you off, but it motivates you at the same time, just like the old Castlevania games. And another thing they did, which in my opinion is fucking brilliant, every time you get killed in these games, the world becomes a little bit darker, and what that means is that your enemies actually become tougher and harder to beat. And at the end of the day, between that and again the older Castlevania games, it's not even about whether or not you accomplish it. It's not about how quickly you beat it, at least not the first time around that you play these games. What it really boils down to here is that you see it through all the way to the end. It's kind of like going to a Slayer concert. Doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down in the mosh pit, if you're still standing by the end of it, I mean, you're accepted among the elites. Because again, the average, anyone who calls themselves a true fan of either D-Souls or the older Castlevania games, these are hardcore gamers. They love the challenge. They love to beat the challenges. And most of them will probably admit the first time playing these games, they got fucking slaughtered. But now it's like, you keep playing them. You go through it, you beat it, you celebrate, and for shits and giggles, you go through it again because it calls to you, it beckons you, and that's what immortalizes them. Because they just jump into your heart and soul as a gamer. Or at least as a true gamer. I mean, most people now, they literally just play for shits and giggles, which I know is technically what games are about. It's really about having fun. But that's the thing, if you're a hardcore gamer, you're having more fun by having more challenges. Kind of like comparing, the newer Resident Evil games, and we're not counting the reboots, but if you count the newer Resident Evil games to the older ones back in the 90s and stuff, Resident Evils 1, 2, and 3, where you had all these crazy puzzles that you had to figure out. Compared to now, it's like you don't really have those anymore, and it takes away from the challenge. It takes away from all the bonuses you can get, all the extra stuff, and you don't want to see things like that really fall down. Which is why, in my opinion, D-Souls is basically carrying on the torch that Castlevania lit and used to set the entire industry on fire when it was in its prime. And a lot of us may hope and dream that someday they will redeem it, but at this point in time, hard to say. But at least we do have the D-Souls series. At least we do have that. If you guys agree, go ahead and let me know. If there's any other information or any other opinions or thoughts you might have, feel free to share it. Otherwise, that's kind of my analysis, at least for right now. Again, there's probably a whole lot more I could think of to say right now, but I need sleep, man. I'm about to crash like an airplane on 9/11. It's not cool. So I appreciate y'all taking the time to watch this video. Please like, subscribe, and again, comment, let me know what you think on this. Let me know what your opinions are. This is the internet. It's a free-form basis where freedom of speech is the ultimate thing here. So, like I said before, it doesn't matter Whether you agree with me, whether you disagree with me, or even if you just want to troll me, go for it. I would just love to see some review of some sort from you guys, and I'm sorry, I'm dragging on, whatever. Stopping the video. But